song that I swear is from an airline, and I thought it was Delta, and I looked up airline songs, and I couldn't find it. I need it. It's such a great song. Anyway, I am driving to Winchester right now to go to the Old Town Mall with my guitar and my art supplies. I met a really cool dude yesterday there. It was like one of those providential things where I was like, wait a minute, this guy is the most interesting person I've ever met. And he's homeless right now, and so I thought told him I'd come back and hang out, and gives me a good reason to go. So that's my vlog of the day. I have a lot of other things that I want to make videos of, and since I'm trying to get back into making YouTube videos once again, I'm just gonna talk about some of the stuff I want to talk about. So the gender ideology of current year, and why it's toxic, the nature of gender, and why gender itself is under attack in the name of, like, celebrating gender. They actually are tearing it down. They judge men for being too masculine, and at the same time, the standard they set for women is to be more like men. So which is it? Do they really? Primarily the attack is on masculinity, that's for sure. But why the attack on masculinity? I'm not sure exactly, but I do know that it goes deeper than just that. It has to do with this burn it all down mentality that people have. And why do they have that mentality? Because if you knock everybody down, if you don't have power and you knock it down so nobody has power, then you can step in and fill the vacuum. I think that's the deeper motivation that the left has. So there's that. Related to that, and this is what kind of got me thinking about it, is the movie The Woman King. And I'm like, wait a minute, The Woman King? Like, there's already a word for that thing, and it's called a queen. But they couldn't call it the Woman Queen, of course, because duh. They could have called it the Warrior Queen. That's what it's about. It's about, I guess, not having seen it. It's a queen that goes to battle or something. But the subtle irony, it's not so subtle to me, it's glaring, but I don't think that most people will pick up on it, is the fact that it betrays internalized misogyny by implying that there's something lesser about being a queen. It's like, oh, she's not just a queen, she's actually a woman king, so that means she's on the level of men. But these people are in a cult, and I think I realized recently that about the nature of cults, and how there are full-blown cults where they control everything about you, but there are lesser cults that people belong to. They might belong to them in an informal way, and they might belong to more than one. And basically, when people are in the grip of ideology, they might not be in a cult if you define a cult by, you list 15 traits of cults, and you say, well, we'll define as officially a cult if, they get 10 out of those 5, right? Or 10 out of those 15. But it is possible, and it happens all the time, that people belong, they have these compartmentalized aspects of their life and their perception that fits those categories of cult. And having a cult mindset, even if it's very compartmentalized, can still be incredibly toxic, incredibly destructive. The reason I realized this was I was at a campfire with some evangelicals, and they were arguing about the nature of the divinity of Christ, and I don't believe the Bible is infallible, so it doesn't really matter to me what the Bible says about it, but I can debate theology from the perspective of a Christian that is, an orthodox in the sense that it fits into, even if there's differences in theology. So anyway, so I was debating, and I was quoting the Bible and making these really good points, and they couldn't even acknowledge that I made valid points. They just started spouting rhetoric, and I'm like, oh, okay, they've just shut off their brains and they're going into automatic pilot where they just repeat stuff. That is a trait that cults have, and it helps me understand the world better, because prior to that I'd thought that, yeah, cults do exist on a spectrum. Somebody might be in a lesser cult or a cult-ish thing, but somehow if it doesn't fit in the definition of a cult, then it's just officially they're not acting like cult members. But people act like cult members in various areas of their lives all the time. I used to myself be an evangelical. It reminds me of, I look at the evangelical world now the way I used to about Mormons. Mormons believe things that are a lot more ridiculous, and they have that, some of those cult mindsets more than evangelicals a lot of the time, because they can't use logic or facts, because it's all bullshit. But I met this guy. I was up at Bear's Den, and we started talking, and we were talking about, he was a really smart guy. We started talking about Bob Lazar and UFOs and stuff, and I was like, all right, gotta talk about UFOs. Who knows a little bit about it? And I said, I don't, people say that there's no way he could have made all that up. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just inserted, well, Joseph Smith, and it had nothing to do with the conversation. It was like odd. It just, all of a sudden, it just came out that Joseph Smith couldn't have made up all that stuff. And I was like, oh no, it's okay if you're a Mormon. I'm not a hater as much as I used to be, but are you really going to try to preach to me? And then he said it, and then bam, it shut off. And then he went back to normal conversation. And I gained a lot of sympathy for Mormons at that point, actually, ironically, because I saw how he had that compartmentalized ideology, and it was like he was obligated to talk about it because it was inserted into his brain. But that doesn't mean that Mormonism is a true, what I would consider like a true cult. It's got cultish aspects. It's very complicated, but it's benign. It's fairly benign if you do want to consider it a cult. But I understood finally it from a psychological standpoint and how people can have compartmentalized cult mindsets that flip on and flip off. And as long as you can shut it off, I wouldn't call you a cult member, even if you are in what is considered a cult. There are cults that people are deep into to varying degrees. Alcoholics Anonymous is one of those. Most of the people that go to AA don't actually practice what AA truly preaches, but people that do are fucking brainwashed. And anyway, so those are my thoughts. I'm really glad to be doing this while I'm driving because it's a lot easier talking while driving because you got something to do and you're not as self-conscious. So yeah, so throat singing. I'm going to hang out with my new homeless friend. Recently homeless. He's a very classy guy. Wouldn't have ever guessed it. Then we talk about gender, ideology, theology, cult mindsets, the nature of cults, cult psychology, the evangelical world that I grew up in, and debating theology. It's I used to call myself a Buddhist, and when the family would get into discussions about such things, I would, not in a preachy way per se, but I would offer up my input and say, here's why I don't believe in Christianity and why Buddhism makes a lot more sense. But I've realized that that's not the best approach because they're not going to, most of these people, the vast majority of evangelicals, unless they're already on the way out, they're not going to give up their faith and turn to Buddhism. So I'd rather build bridges with people where I am able to point out, here is what I see in the Bible, and here's why you should take it, and here's where the evangelicals get it wrong, and here's what I think Jesus really meant. And it's appealing to some of the fundamental doctrines, but pointing out the inconsistencies. I'm trying to think. There's so many. Here's one. Christians don't actually believe that every word of the Bible is infallible. They say they do, But when it comes, but they completely ignore the book of Leviticus. Why is the book of Leviticus in the Bible at all? And I think that we all have various belief systems, and I myself, I have no doubt that I have many, many different belief systems that contradict one another. But I think that because I'm a philosopher, you know, and I've kind of escaped the grip of ideology and theology, and I think a lot about these things and think about logic and evidence and reason, and I feel like I've been able to sort of have a bigger picture where my belief systems are more in harmony with one another, and they're not at least they're not glaring contradiction. Now, to a much smarter person, they might be, but anyway, that's all I'm gonna say for now. And final note, I'm going to talk about this in another video. Just a few days ago, the 29th of September was the day of my longboarding accident, and I want to talk about what that means and why the anniversary has been significant. And yeah, so we'll leave it there.